I'm going to go and have a drink. No, I've got to go. I'm going to drink some Chardonnay. Bye. Hey, team. Oh, goodness, you're all very keen. I can't imagine why. I actually thought you'd all be rushing out to have your last dinner out in the free world, but I guess 8 o'clock's not really late enough to to get to go out for dinner. Anyway, hi everyone. Hello. Michael's back from Darwin. Good to see you, Michael. Hello, Niram and Keely. Hello, Craig. I think I saw Shell had the first say. Good to see you all. Hello, Jeff. Back in lockdown again in 1 hour and 59 minutes. Hello, Kay. How you going? Craig, what's a weird SMEW? What's a SMEW? I don't understand that word. Hi, Rob and Deb. G'day. Duck in hand. That's right. We're here for the Chardonnay today. You have a little sip of water. Oh. Hello, Peter and Karen. Exactly. Santa did cancel Christmas, Craig. Oh, Paul and Roz, g'day. How you going? Jill. Michael, you're funny today. Jill's actually about to go shopping, but I don't think it's for toilet paper. I think it's for dog food. Hello, Sarah. Hello to all the tricks. Anne. Hello, Anne and Margaret. Good to see you. Good work. G'day, Pete. And, I know. Hello, Sarah and Kate and Sarah and Kate's mum. Hi. Hello, James. You're also in lockdown. We're all in lockdown together. Isn't it lovely? Not really, but lovely to see you all. Weird smells coming from the bottle slightly. Don't be worried, Craig. Get it in the glass is what I say. Samantha, I think that's right. Thank goodness for Drinks with Kate. Hello, Emily. How you going? And I got a message from Angela and Simon. They're joining us as well. They were supposed to be out tonight, but now they're not. So hello, Alison. How you going, Alison and Andrew? Lovely to see you. Mightily pleased with. We lost you halfway through your message. I'm sure you'll get that message with the duck. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? It's very different from the Robinson that we had last week, but it's its own wine, which is important when you make single vineyard wines. If they do not taste different, then it's a big worry. Hello, Penny. How you going? Everyone's teasing me. Hello, Barry. How you going? Teasing me with half sentences and then disappearing. And I'd like to say hello to all our Newcastle friends, including my sister Christy and Chris and the girls, because you guys are in lockdown as well, I believe. It's such a popular thing to do at the moment, isn't it? You'd be feeling like you were missing out if you weren't in lockdown with the rest of us. It's like when I was in year 8 and all the girls at school. I know, Penny. Oh, fair enough. Okay. Well, lovely to have you to start with anyway. Now, I remember when I was in year 8, all the girls at school, because I went to a girls' school, all the girls at school were getting braces and everyone needed to get braces. And I had very crooked teeth, so I also got braces. I was in the braces club. And the couple of girls who didn't have braces really felt like they were missing out on all of the fun. And those of us who had braces, who knew how painful and awful they were, it's no fun at all. Braces, lockdown, pretty much the same thing, really, isn't it? Hello, Linda. You're here as well. Hello, Polly. Polly's wandering around. Oh, on her sofa. There you go. Polly's joined us. Good girl, Pol. Oh, she's got camera shy all of a sudden. All right, let's have some wine, hey? Craig. It is really tight. You could decant it or you could just get it into a big glass. I'm going to use my Pinot glass again. Speaking of that, let's get this show on the road. Hello, James. I don't know. We could do the sums. How many people in lockdown across Australia? It's a lot. So we've got Greater Brisbane. We've got the whole of Victoria. So I had some friends who were hoping to get up to the snow and they thought they might make a dash for it tonight, but no, it's the whole, so they're not allowed to stay there, so no point there. So the whole of Victoria, bits and pieces of New South Wales. Yep, it's pretty good, pretty awesome. And those of you out there who are not in lockdown, you're probably not watching because you're probably busy having a life. But it's not very. You can't really go very far either, even if you're not in lockdown. Anyway, my heart goes out to all of those restaurants that have food in their kitchen that they can't even sell to people tonight. That's awful. Oh, Noose is in lockdown too. Yep. Oh gosh. Oh, Paul and Roz, that's no good at all. I'm looking forward to the hoodie group shot too, Penny. And let me just tell you, I'm just going to I forgot to turn off my email and it's binging at me, so we'll just get rid of that. Here we go. Nothing useful coming in on the emails at the moment. Oh, Hannah, happy birthday! Yay! Hi, Jack and Zach. Lovely to see you guys. Have a great birthday today, Hannah. Special birthday present for you, Duc Chardonnay. Woohoo! And I think Margaret's birthday is coming up too. The weird smells of the wine and the weird smells of the Gris make for it. Yes, there is a weird sort of. Let me get my wine in my glass and we can talk about it. So the obligatory label shot, the Moorooduc McIntyre Chardonnay 2019. Let's get that open and get it in the glass. Yeah, Barry, I know, awful. So I keep saying I'm very lucky, but I've got to say it does get you down a bit with this constant, getting excited about doing stuff and then not being able to do stuff again. Anyway, that's all right. No one can take Drinks with Kate away from us. So cheers, everyone. Yeah, really, really savoury aromatics. It will take you a little while to kind of get into it, but I think that once you do, and because the Robinson last week was so sort of pure fruited and driven and forward and lush, this wine is a bit of a surprise because you can't expect this to be similar, but it's quite different. Yeah. Yes, Michael, I agree. It does have, thanks, Barry. I think, Michael, you're right. It does have an amazing nose and it will open up slowly but surely. Pete, if you would like to be trying along with us, Pete's just wandered into the room. There's the bottle. It's all yours. Richard will probably come and join you sooner or later. Yeah, so it does have these really kind of savoury, I hear what you're saying, Michael. There is a sort of a burgundy kind of savoury, cheesy, earthy, mushroomy complexity to this wine that I think it's really what I love about the McIntyre Chardonnay. I think it's very, very cool. So James, we are trying. So this is very exciting. This is the new, not yet released 2019 Duc Chardonnay. So nobody else in the world has tasted this wine yet, except for a couple of wine writers. And we decided to pop this and the Robinson that we had last week into the box this time around because we're going to be releasing them in about a week's time. So in conjunction, the Halliday Guide comes out in mid-August, and we decided, because we never have anything, to sort of go, oh, the Halliday Guide, awesome. So we thought we've run out of the 18 Chardonnays, single vineyard Chardonnay. So we thought we'll get this out there. So now, what is everybody saying? Lots of talking again today, which is awesome. I love it when you guys chat back. Rob and Deb, yes, the ultimate COVID vaccine. Very funny. And Penny was asking about the hoodies before, so I was going to talk to you about the hoodies really quickly. Pete's put the order in, so you'll be getting a phone. If you haven't got a phone call yet, Nigel's going through the orders and calling everyone who we don't have credit card details for yet. So over the next little while, you'll get a phone call. We'll get that all sorted, and it'll be terrific. So we're hoping. Thank you, Sarah. I love the Duc too. It's great. yeah, so we're hoping that the hoodies will be ready soon, and once they're ready, we will hand deliver them to who we can, and we'll stick them in the mail to anyone who's a bit further afield, and we'll get them out there. It is very subtle, Craig, but it will keep opening up and it'll keep changing. Oh, Cotty, that's a lovely question. So the artwork, the labels are all designed by our friend Brian Sadgrove. He is an amazing graphic designer who is quite famous in his field, I believe. I've known him all my life, basically, because he designed the very first, well, not quite all my life, but as long as I can remember, he designed the first original Moorooduc Estate label from oh, hello, Angela. I gave you a call out before, but that's awesome. I'm glad you got back safely from the fish and chip shop. Oh, pre-lockdown panic traffic. I'm hoping the traffic will be good again for the next week if I need to go and do deliveries. That's one of the few silver linings that we have. So Brian Sadgrove designed the labels. He designed the first label back in the 80s when we first had a wine to release, and he's still working with us today. He's in his 80s now, but he loves coming down and sort of working through how we're going to do things and coming up with different ideas. So the Duc label, I think, was the second label that he designed. It's a photograph of one of our barrels, which we paint a duck on the end of every for every barrel gets a duck painted on the end of it, so it's pretty special. It is subtle, Craig, and it's going to keep opening up. It's great food wine, and I think that will be delicious with your chicken and mushrooms. I can totally imagine it would be brilliant with your cheddar, Alison, and Angela's fish and chips. It'll be good, and Jeff's Gruyere. And this is so the Gruyere call. Jeff has been Mr. Gruyere since April 2020. It's much more subtle, and I totally agree. So Gruyere is one of those classic food and wine matches is Gruyere and Jura Chardonnay, and the Jura is sort of near Burgundy, but not quite, more up in the foothills of the Alps. So they make sort of slightly different Chardonnay from Burgundy and Chablis, and good Jura Chardonnay with aged Gruyere is a classic food and wine match, particularly in France, where both those things come from. And I've always loved that matching of aged Gruyere, that sort of nutty, earthy, slightly stinky character that you get from the Gruyere, and it matches this wine really, really well. And even more so when it's got some age on it. The Duc Chardonnay is great with aged Gruyere when it's sort of 5 to 8 years of age. It's sort of mellowed out and got more nutty and savoury. It would be great with your pan-fried fish, Cotty, absolutely. Yeah, so this wine absolutely is a wine that needs some time. It needs time in the glass now as a young wine, so keep swirling and sipping and sniffing slowly. And as you say, Craig, it is like a ride. It takes you on a little journey, and it's good fun. Hold on tight. It's Hainese. Penny, I'm not sure, is Hainese chicken quite spicy? I think if there's much chili in it, I think they might fight a bit, but that's okay. Eat the food, drink the wine. If they don't go together, then have one and then the other. James. Lots of wines say unfined and unfiltered. They seem to use it as a marketing ploy. It almost annoys you. What exactly is it, and do you do it? Okay, so when you're getting wine ready for bottling, there's a couple of things that you can do with the wine, and fining is one thing. Fining will do a number of different things depending on what fining agent you use and what you want it to do. Some fining agents will take browning out of white wine. Some will take tannin out of red wine. Some will just smooth the wine out a little bit. And we actually use a little bit of fining, and we use filtration usually in our white wines, but not in our red wines. Filtration is just putting the wine through a filter to take out haziness, which sometimes, but also if you've made a wine like a Chardonnay and allowed it to go through a natural fermentation and a natural malolactic fermentation, then I've got 4 dogs in the room with me, so there might be a little bit of barking from time to time. But I also have 2 humans in the room who will do a really good job of keeping them under control. Yeah, so fining and filtering the wine takes tiny particulates out of the wine, and sometimes it will make it better, and sometimes it'll sort of it'll smooth it out. We tend to fine and filter our Chardonnays because we don't want them to re-ferment in the bottle if there's any viable yeast or malo bug left in the wine. And with the Pinots, they spend a little bit longer in the barrel, and so they stabilise themselves over that time, and we don't tend to fine and filter the Pinots. We'll still do trials often for fining the Pinots, but they usually taste better pre-fining than trying to add fining to the wines. Anyway, I hope that makes sense, James. But yes, so this wine has been filtered and fined, and yeah, it's a marketing thing, and it sounds a bit, and it's an excuse. Sometimes people use as an excuse for red wine, particularly Pinot Noir, being a bit cloudy. It's kind of trendy with Pinot Noir, and a lot of people will say that filtering Pinot Noir removes some of the more delicate characters of the wine and makes it a lesser wine after it's been filtered. But of course, people who filter Pinot Noir say that's rubbish and all the characters come back. So it's a bit of marketing. It's a bit philosophical. It's also really difficult to filter Pinot Noir to get haze out of the wine because the tannins are very, very fine and they tend to block up the filter. So it's a horrible job. So if you can get the wine to fall clear without having to filter it, then it's a much happier winemaker who doesn't have to filter Pinot Noir. So there's some thoughts, some random thoughts about fining and filtering. Barry, the McIntyre, a bit like the Estate 2017. Oh, yeah, yes and no. I think the McIntyre is a more powerful. It's always a more powerful wine. It's a more complex wine, but it gets that power and that complexity from the age of the vines and the site that it's in. Whereas the 2017 Estate Chardonnay was also restrained and a bit savoury, but it was a little bit finer and a bit more linear, perhaps. I think that they're both really good wines. The 17s from Estate and the single vineyard wines were terrific. And if you've got them in your cellar, then they will age very, very nicely. Yeah, I think, Shell, I do think that, and I was actually not joking when I suggested that you did the ultimate tasting experiment and have exactly the same wine, exactly the same food with the wine this week as you had last week, although that kind of would be a little bit weird. But this is a great seafood wine as well, great with poached chicken and that kind of thing as well. What are you eating with your wine tonight, Shell? I think you might have mentioned, but I've lost it up in the stream of things. Coffin Bay and Sydney rock oysters with the Robinson. And tonight, there you go, Robin Deb. Well, there you go. I thought that the oysters might be better with the Robinson, but I'm absolutely happy because there is that sort of minerally, sort of oyster shell kind of character about the McIntyre Chardonnay that the Robinson doesn't have. The Robinson always has this purity of fruit and line and directness to it, and that wine will actually age very well. I think Michael maybe said before that didn't think that the Robinson would age as well as the McIntyre. It might not age quite as well as this wine, but it will age. It just goes in a slightly different direction. It ages really, really nicely. Oh, yum. That sounds pretty good. Holy Goat La Luna, Le Dauphin Double Brie, and Agria because of Jeff. Well, I think this wine should be very good with those cheeses as well, hopefully, but it would be also delicious with prawns. Is anyone having prawns? I think that prawns would be fabulous with this wine. Okay. Rob and Deb didn't like the Coffin Bay oysters with the Robinson. Are they a bit creamier, the Coffin Bay oysters, bits of bit less salty than the Tasmanian ones. I can't, not awesome with them unless they're in front of me. Yes, Zach and Jack winemakers do still use egg white for fining, mostly for red wine, but it's probably the most widely used natural product for fining red wine. It's easy to handle, it's easy to get, it's easy to use. So yeah, absolutely egg white fining. There are other things that people can use, but if you want your wine to be vegan, of course, you can't use egg white fining. So vegan wines will tend to be fined with earth products, diatomaceous earth, those kind of things can be used. There are other fining agents people use. There's a thing called isinglass, which is basically tiny little fish that do things. So yeah, absolutely, Emily, there are issues with people who have egg allergies if egg whites are used for fining. So what fining actually does, you put the fining agent in the top of the wine, it goes down through the wine, filters down through the wine, and it solidifies and catches all those little tiny particles that you want to take out of it and drags them down to the bottom of the vessel with them, and then you just suck the wine off the top of that clump of stuff at the bottom. So the egg whites have passed through the wines really rather than staying in the wine. So you'd have to be very allergic to eggs to be affected by egg whites in the fining. And dairy will do exactly the same thing. Some people will use dairy, and dairy also is used by some people for just stopping the surface of the wine foaming up too much. It's an anti-foaming type of substance. So yeah, I think at such tiny quantities, Emily, that people feel that. I think that more often I would see egg products and dairy products and things like that used in fining and being listed on the bottle for people who are maybe morally averse to eating animal-derived products, rather than for allergic reasons, but also probably to keep themselves safe as far as allergens are concerned, because they're tiny quantities of these products and they pass through the wine rather than remaining in the wine. So yeah, if you are worried about it, then absolutely just keep an eye on things. But we've gone completely vegan in our winemaking as of this year, so that's exciting. Rob and Deb, they were very salty. Okay, well, I think this one would work very well with salty oysters, absolutely. Craig, you can make an omelette if you like an egg yolk omelette with the leftovers, or you can make lots of chocolate mousse, or what else can you make with egg yolks, Pete? Pete's got a couple of biscuit recipes that he makes with egg yolks when we've got lots left over. So yeah, it would be quite rich. Yes, Peter and Karen, you do beat the egg whites up in the same way you would to clarify a consommé. It's exactly the same principle. Gosh, lots and lots of questions and comments. Yes, Michael, I agree. So what we see with the McIntyre Chardonnay when it's ripening in the vineyard, because those vines are the oldest vines that we've got, we planted them back in 1983. They're old gnarled vines. They take they tend to set less fruit on them now than the younger vines, and so you get more energy put into ripening each grape than if you've got a bigger mass of fruit on the vine. So the vines put more energy into ripening the grapes, but they tend to ripen quite slowly compared to the younger vines, and also compared to the Robinson Chardonnay tends to get fully ripe about a week before this. So these vines develop more the flavour evolves more slowly, so we have to kind of leave it on the vine for a little bit longer, but it also holds really lovely natural acidity in the wine. So I think we are looking for that in the Duc. So we make all of the wine in barrel-sized portions. So we've got lots of little parcels of wine that we can keep separate until just before we decide to bottle it. So all of that fruit that comes from the old vine McIntyre vineyard is vinified separately from the Robinson fruit, from the younger Chardonnay vine fruit. And those barrels are all identified as being from the old Chardonnay. We'll then taste through those barrels a number of times and decide which ones are good enough to go to the Duc Chardonnay and which ones will get declassified back to estate Chardonnay. And what we're looking for in those Duc barrels, we see every year we have that. It's this amazing combination of power and elegance, of restraint and richness, of incredible layers of flavour that take a really long time to evolve. And yes, absolutely, that acid line and a textural quality as well. There's a phenolic textural quality that we get from this fruit, which is really awesome and really exciting. And it's not in every single barrel from that vineyard, and that's a really interesting thing. So each different barrel will taste slightly different, and tasting through and seeing how each of those barrels expresses itself and finding the better barrels in amongst the mix is one of the most exciting things to do in the winemaking calendar, is going through those barrels and tasting them, going, oh yeah, that one, maybe not that one, that one. So yeah, absolutely. I think it would be absolutely so yes, we are looking for that natural acid, Michael, but it's also that savoury power and restraint at the same time of the fruit character that we're looking for in this wine that we think is really special. James, the best McIntyre Duc we've produced, it's hard to say. It changes. This one I think is pretty special. The 2021, which obviously is still in barrel and not going to be anywhere near ready to be released for another 2 years, is also very exciting, the flavour profiles. Going back, I'm loving I thought the 2008 was fabulous. I think, Dad, what was the vintage that James Halliday really, was that the 06 Duc Chardonnay? The 08. The 08 Duc Chardonnay got 97 or 98 out of 100 from Halliday, which is the highest score that we've got from Halliday, and did very, very well. So I think that the 08, if you've got any 08 Duc Chardonnay in your cellar, it's drinking really, really well at the moment, and it's stunning wine. The 12s are looking good right now. It tends to be from this, for me, it's from the slightly cooler years. But, you know, it's a really consistent vineyard these days, the Old Vine Chardonnay vineyard. It gives us quality, and there's a difference in style. So, Emily, all of our Chardonnays do age, and they tend to age well over the same sort of period of time, but there's always different flavours that evolve with aging. So it is a bit of a discovery, and the more you do, the more you play with cellaring the wine and tasting the wines with age on them. And when we can have an event at the winery that people can come to, I'm really looking forward to releasing these wines properly, and we'll probably have to release them, do sort of a bit of a soft release first of all if we're in lockdown for another week, and then it's actually about this time next week that we were supposed to be releasing the wines officially. So we'll do a soft release, but when we're out of lockdown again and we can have a play, then I think that would be lovely to taste some back vintages as well as current release. Craig Reggie is hating winter at the moment. The poor bird keeps going and finding little places to try and shelter from the rain and the wind and things. And he turned up looking all wet and bedraggled the other day because we had a horrible rainstorm early in the morning. So yeah, he's not He's not super happy about things at the moment. He's always hated winter, but as he's getting older, he's a bit creakier. You see him limping around sometimes. So I think some of his old war wounds are playing up a bit these days too. Cotty, so we don't so when you say we don't thin these vines, do you mean do a green harvest of the fruit? Because we haven't had to for a long time, but when we have to, we do. Richard and Jeremy are getting to. I don't know. I haven't said hello to Jeremy yet. I don't know if he's there. Hello, Jeremy. Barry, wait your turn. I will answer your question in just a minute. Now I can't remember what I was saying because Barry's shouting at me. I think that, Jeremy and Richard are doing a lot of the pruning out there in that old Chardonnay vineyard they've just finished. They're down doing the baby Chardonnay vines at the bottom of the vineyard and about to start on the Shiraz. So pruning is really important, and getting the pruning right 2 years ahead of the vintage that you're looking for is also pretty exciting. But yeah, we don't tend to have to do a green harvest usually, Cotty, but if we do, we do. The Duc the Duc always tastes less linear than the Robinson. It's always got more muscle and more weight to it, but it doesn't show its fruit, doesn't show its flavour as quickly as the Robinson, which I think is really interesting. Barry, thank you. I think we are blessed with our Chardonnay vines. They're super duper, and I love the Chardonnay that we grow and make here. It's one of the loveliest things about this site is that Chardonnay works really, really well. We've had to work a bit harder to try and get Pinot Noir right. I think that we are absolutely kicking goals with Pinot as well now, but Chardonnay came a little bit easier, a little bit earlier, and we're always just, adjusting the levels a little bit, making sure that we pick at exactly the right time. And I think that's the most important thing about Chardonnay, is picking it not too early and not too late, so that it's just perfectly right. It's still got beautiful acid line. Right. Now, Craig, I will answer that question in a moment, but Barry, the winemaking has remained pretty consistent for Chardonnay over the last, I would say, 15 to 20 years, since we started using wild yeast fermentation. We've always encouraged the Duc Chardonnay to go through a full malolactic fermentation. The only year that we didn't was 2011 because it was a really weird. Yeah, no, that's all right, Barry. I realised what you'd done after I'd told you off for shouting at me, but I'm answering your question now, so it'll work. So yes, the winemaking has been pretty similar. The two things that have changed over the years with the Duc Chardonnay is that we are picking it slightly less ripe than we did maybe 20 years ago, and we're using less new oak because we don't think it needs as much new oak, and we think that the new oak can mask some of the beautiful flavours that we get from the vineyard. So I think that's absolutely the way to go. So yeah, the winemaking hasn't changed, but there's always little adjustments to how we make the wine and what we do with the fruit. But it's just, I think we getting better at doing the same thing along the way. Craig, yes, the vines do have an end of life date. We don't always know what it is, and it depends how well we've looked after the vines along the way. The one big issue in Australia is that there's a vine disease called Utepa, which I've mentioned before, and it gets in through pruning cuts, we know now, but we didn't know so well a long time ago. So Utepa gets in through pruning cuts and works its way down through the vine, down the trunk and into the roots, and kills the vine from the top down. If you pick up on Utepa early enough, you can cut the diseased part off the top of the vine and grow fresh canes from below there and save the vine. But we have, like most vineyards in Australia, we have Utepa in our Chardonnay vineyard, and we've really improved the way we prune the vines these days compared to the early days. and look after those pruning cuts on the vines and all that kind of thing. So I think down the track, Utah will hopefully be less of a problem for us. But the Chardonnay vines, they'll just kind of slowly decrease in their productivity and get sort of weaker and less effective at growing grapes and ripening grapes over, say, 60 to 100 years for vines on their own roots. But then you also have the complexing argument that a lot of vines that are being planted today and our newer vines in our vineyard are being planted on rootstock. And those vines are not as stable because it's two different vines that have been stuck together. So they tend to only live maybe 40 to 60 years. So we've actually taken a third of the old vines out of the Chardonnay vineyard and replanted them so that in 30 or 40 years' time, when the other vines start to give up on life, then we'll have some old vines already there. So it means that we make a bit less of the Duc Chardonnay as a result, but it's better, hopefully a long time into the future. Okay, more questions. Peter and Karen, a green harvest is when you cut some fruit off when it's still green to give the vines a lower yield and let them spend more energy on each bunch of grapes rather than having to, like a vine might have set 10 bunches and you really only want 5 for that size of that vine in the season. So you cut off 5 of them and throw them on the ground just before they start to veraise, which is when they start going from green to yellow if we're talking about Chardonnay vines, or green to red if they're red vines, red grapes. And so that just means that we're concentrating their energies in less fruit, which makes better quality better quality fruit. Good, Barry. I'm glad you're laughing at me. That's good. Yeah, pan-fried in salted butter fish, beautiful, absolutely delicious, Samantha. That would be so yummy. Rob and Deb, I'm really enjoying drinking this wine tonight, but I most enjoy the Duc Chardonnay when it's got 5 to 8 years of age on it, and when it's a really good one, for a lot longer than that. But 5 to 8 years for me, for our Chardonnays, is a really sweet spot at the moment, and that makes me very happy. Yeah, Barry, I think that's another really interesting point. And I think when we were tasting a previous Duc Chardonnay, it's one of the things that we look for in the fruit character of this wine when we're going through the barrels. It's got this sandalwoody spice to it, which is sort of reminiscent of the flavour that you get from the barrels, but we're actually getting it from the vineyard. It's a natural character in the fruit, and I think it gives this sort of exoticism to the wine. It also is one of the things that stops the wine from being as fruit driven as the Robinson, for example, or as pure fruited as the Robinson. So I think that's absolutely a good point. Zach and Jack, vines do not last longer in France compared to the New World. In fact, there are hardly any vines in France or in Europe these days that are on their own roots, because the reason that vines were grafted and planted on other rootstock was a nasty pest called phylloxera that was brought from America to Europe in the late 1700s. And is that right, Dad? Too early. Middle of the 19th century it came to Europe, and then at the end of the 19th century it came to Australia. So phylloxera is a bug that we don't have a way of we don't have anything to get rid of it. So once it's in the soil, it's very, very hard to deal with it. It does the opposite of Utah, that mold that I was talking about. The phylloxera bugs eat the roots and kill the vines from the root up. Shell, that's probably about right. Oh, you guys are hilarious, Craig. Time is only in number of tasting boxes. That's absolutely right. Yes, I think Shell's done the maths for me. Thank you very much, Shell. Yeah. So all of the vines in France are on rootstock. And as I said before, rootstock vines don't have that longevity that vines on their own roots have. So we have in Australia the oldest Shiraz vines in the world because they're on their own roots. And you can find them in Victoria at Chateau de Bilk. Chateau de Bilk has got Shiraz vines that are well over 100 years old. They're probably not producing very much fruit anymore, but they're very, very old, and they're much older than any vines that are still surviving in France or anywhere in Europe. So I think that's pretty cool. Vines for wine. There are other vines. There's, the Italians say they've got the oldest vine in the world growing in the gardens of a castle, and somebody else says something else. But yeah, we've got the oldest wine grape vines in the world in Nagambie. I think that's where Chateau de Bilk is. Anyway, near Shepparton, where my mum grew up and my grandmother used to live. More questions. James, I wouldn't hold my breath about Nebbiolo or Blaufränkisch. We haven't planted any Blaufränkisch yet. That's still in the pipelines. It's possibly in the field of dreams, but, we'll see what happens. And the Nebbiolo, Richard made a bottle and a half, I think. Did we work out it was a bottle and a half or 2 bottles of Nebbiolo this year? First vintage. Huh? 2 litres of Nebbiolo. Whole bunch because we weren't able to destem it because it wasn't enough fruit to destem it. And from our 8 Nebbiolo vines. So it's been bottled. No one's going to be tasting it except for us, I'm sure. But we'll see how it goes. Isn't that cool, Craig? How finally it's starting to open up. But James, we'll keep thinking about Nebbiolo and Blaufränkisch and other grape varieties that might do well in this space, but not to the detriment of Chardonnay or Pinot Noir, I hope, for a very long time. What's the greatest legacy? The wine, vines, or the person who has their own life? Michael, that sounds very philosophical. I think it's quite nice. I'm not quite sure what the answer to that is, though. I think, 1974. Oh, really, Barry? Well, that's, De Bilk's been there for a long time. If you graft now onto old vines, does that refresh the vines? Wow, you guys are asking really technical questions tonight. Cotty, people would tend not to graft new onto old vines unless they really, really wanted to keep that old root system because they're very hard to manage because the grafts, the vine underneath the graft that has been established wants to keep growing. So you need to keep pulling those off, and the top part of the vine. Yeah, we did that with our Pinot Noir. Our old Cabernet vines, we grafted over to Pinot Noir about 15 years ago, and that did really, really well until 2 years ago, and then the vines started to fail really spectacularly, which meant that we pulled them out, and we now have our field of oats. They're oats at the moment. It was a field of wheat originally. Now it's a field of oats, and one day it will be a field of vines again. But we're just trying to rejuvenate the soil a little bit first. Oh, Keely Nareem, I'm not sure whether we will have a Nebbiolo lunch, but I think we'll definitely have lunch one day soon. I think that would be very fun. How's your wine tasting now? Have you drunk it all? Finished all your food? You feeling better? I'm certainly feeling much more relaxed after having a chat to you guys. It's been lovely. So I've done it to myself again. I haven't checked what wine we're supposed to be doing next week, so I'll keep talk amongst yourselves for a moment. Shell, I just got your text message. You did go quite hard last week with your fish fry up, but cheese is very rewarding as well. Cheese is less hard work. So what are we doing next week? Can anybody tell me before I look it up? Moorooduc Estate home. I'm waiting for Jeff to type something amazing up on the thing, but. Thank you, Michael. It's been lovely to see you. I agree, Barry. The aromas are really kind of opening up and coming out and looking amazing. Here we go. It's not very good television when I'm looking down at my phone, is it? Okay, we did the McIntyre Shiraz already. We did the 19 Robinson Chardonnay. We did the 19 the Moorooduc Chardonnay today. Next week is Podgerino. Podgerino Chianti Classico, which is your little guest wine in your box. This is one of my favourite Italian wines. I will tell you all the stories of Podgerino next week. I might even bring my photo album with me. That is something to look forward to. While you're all in lockdown, you can make yourselves a lovely lasagna, perhaps, for next week, or some homemade pasta. It'll be whatever you feel like. Make it Italian, make it tomatoey. Not too much chili, but it will be superb. I will send you an email on Monday with some food suggestions and maybe a couple of recipes. I'll pull my finger out, get that sorted. It's been awesome, everyone. Take care. Look after yourselves. Drink better, drink less in lockdown. Make every mouthful count. Brisket lasagna, Anne, will be delicious. Take care, everyone. Cheers. Have a lovely night. And happy birthday, Margaret, for next week. And Angela for a couple of weeks' time. And it's my birthday next week, so you have to be really nice to me because I'm a bit sad that I probably won't be able to celebrate. Bye, everyone. I'll celebrate with you guys in Podgerino Chianti. See you later. Cheers.